Well, here it is in my hands, new iPhone 13 mini. With all the fuss and commotion over the new Pro models, you gotta wonder how the camera on this new mini holds up, especially if you're actually into photography. Now, I got the mini this year because I'm just sick of big phones, and if you're watching this video, it probably means you're thinking the same thing. If only there was an iPhone Pro mini. But we have to make do, so how good is the camera in this iPhone mini? And what's to go with these Photographic Styles feature? Is it any good? Will I actually use it? And what do I miss out from the Pro models? Coming from the now ancient iPhone XS, this is a really impressive upgrade. I know Apple shouts about the features in their Pro lineup, but this mini is no slouch either. So first of all, let's talk about the positives. The Photographic Styles feature is exclusive to the A15 chip and available across the iPhone 13 lineup. I'm not entirely sold on this feature yet, but you can judge for yourself with these early results. Secondly, we have an improved sensor. I think it's in line with the rest of the Pro models, including sensor shift stabilization. This is a big deal for an entry-level iPhone. The larger sensor allows more light to come through in low-light photography and improves dynamic range and detail across the board. Thirdly, this wide-angle lens is great, coming from the iPhone XS, which didn't even have one. It also has a new and improved night mode, which I'll play around with more in the future. So what does the mini miss out on? Well, there's a lack of LiDAR, which exists in the Pro models and helps with night mode. The lenses are also not the same as the Pro models. It seems they get faster lenses. The mini gets a 1.8 aperture wide lens, whilst the Pro gets a 1.5. The mini gets a 2.4 aperture ultra wide lens, whilst the Pro gets a 1.8. The mini lacks a telephoto lens, whilst the Pro gets a telephoto 2.8. The mini also lacks Pro RAW. This is a bummer, because I really do think Apple could implement this in the phone if they wanted to, but they probably don't. So you lose a bit of that flexibility, and FYI, as a working commercial photographer, on my real cameras, I always shoot RAW. The mini also misses out on ProRes, which is similar to RAW, but for video. It does, however, have cinematic mode, which I'll do a separate video on later. And again, there's the lack of telephoto lenses. Not much else to say here, but if you're trying to get some reach with your phone, you can do it, but it's not exactly Instagram worthy. And finally, the lack of macro. This is actually rather huge because the macro on the standard 13 is really not great. This is as close as I could get with the 13 mini. Much of Apple's camera system relies on computational photography, and the A15 chip has more processing power than ever before. As Apple's computational power goes up, so too does the quality and features of their cameras. Now, whilst the sensor and glass hardware in serious professional camera equipment dwarves that of the iPhone, the computational processing power in the iPhone dwarves even the most high-end commercial photography equipment. It is by far and away the iPhone's biggest drawcard. Now, if you're a candid mobile shooter like me with your iPhones, then this is seriously impressive. It doesn't have the true flexibility of Pro RAW like in the Pro models, but it's more than decent, and it still utilizes that Apple computational photography algorithms to maximize the scene. In case you're curious, here's what the same shot looks like between the iPhone 13 mini and my Sony a7R IV. Here's the same shot, zoomed 100% crop on the Sony. It would be really interesting to compare this with the telephoto lens on the Pro models. If you're serious about photography and you're going to be relying on your phone as a serious part of your kit, then I think the Pro model is definitely worth upgrading to, just for that telephoto lens and the Pro RAW features alone. It should come as absolutely no surprise that this mini isn't as good as the Pro models for photography, but to be honest, it's good enough for what I want. When I want to prioritize photos, I use my Sony, but when I want to prioritize a phone, then I want something like this, and the improved camera features is just a bonus. But I think we can all agree that what I would really like to see is an iPhone Pro Mini.